We are back with more NBA playoff coverage, and in this one, I'll be covering Game 6 of the NBA Finals between the Pacers and the Thunder. As I alluded to in the last video, this was certainly a game that I felt as though the Pacers could win, and again, in the best case scenario, if they wanted to at least keep their season alive with a chance to win it all in Game 7, they were going to have to win this particular game. And to be honest, the way the game started, you would have thought that the Thunder would have run away with this one. I mean, for the first few minutes of the first quarter alone, the Pacers had just two separate free throw makes on the board, and they were down 10-2 as Chet Holmgren would get on the board with a layup to cap that run off. And then you also had Jalen Williams just continue to hunt down Aaron Nesmith, which is pretty bold. We're talking about one of the better perimeter defenders on that particular team, in a player with Aaron Nesmith who has a taller frame than Jalen Williams, yet he's just constantly getting attacked like this. He got 2 buckets on him earlier on. So momentum was trending in the wrong direction. But all it takes sometimes to break that kind of cold streak is just one play. And while Pascal Siakam would get that kind of play on a breakdown off of an offensive rebound to give them their first field goal of the game, it would take that next shot, which would end up being an and one up against Lucic Dort, to get them up to a 10-7 ball game. And all of a sudden, from that point, the Pacers turned it on completely on both sides of the fucking basketball. After that hot start, the Pacers would go on a 26-13 run. They were suffocating the Thunder offense on the defensive side of the basketball. The way they were guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on some particular drives, as they pointed out in post, all 5 guys were watching him. The second he even thought about driving into the paint, they were trying to collapse on him often. It didn't happen all the time. You did have situations where he had one-on-one matchups and he was able to take advantage. But for the most part, they weren't allowing him to get in that close. They were going to keep him in the mid-range area and force him to distribute it to other players on the team. And their turnover rate was also just horrible compared to last game. I mean, they already started off that, game with at least 4 to 5 turnovers in the first quarter. One of those came with TJ McConnell getting right into the ball game and getting himself a steal off of a deflected pass. That could be viewed to be a little lazy. But at the same time, for Pacers defense, who isn't necessarily known to be the best in the league, to make those kinds of plays early and be that opportunistic from the jump, you just got a feeling it was going to be their kind of night. Yeah, McConnell doing that, but the team as a whole, whether it was Pascal Siakam or Andrew Nembhard as well, just getting their hands in there in the trenches and forcing disruption. Also, they were willing, again, with the way they were guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, to give up open looks to other shooters. Aaron Wiggins obviously had a spectacular game in Game 5. You had Isaiah Joe still getting playing time. You had Casey Wallace still getting playing time out here. Alex Caruso obviously has been a staple for them this entire series, but I'm not going to lie to you, all of them, when it came to jump shooting from the three-point line, struggled. And as a team as well, it just did not go well for them. You could attribute that to the shot not fouling, but at the same time, a good portion of those were also relatively contested. and they just couldn't get anything to go. You know, you need a few shots if you're an elite sharpshooter and I guess like a catch and shoot guy to get in rhythm. They could never find that, because that is how just good the rotations were for this Pacers defense. And then their offense as well completely woke up over this course of the run. Their three-point shooting as well, which they struggled with, ironically enough, in the last game, that turned around completely for them. Andrew Nembhard was hitting step-back three-point jumpers and getting himself an 8-point first quarter. Obi Toppin continues to have an excellent series off the bench, and he would get some three-pointers for them as well. I think he also had 8 points in this first quarter. So things like that just going in their favor. And then you also have Tyrese Halliburton getting himself on the board with a three-pointer early, breaking a streak of, I think they said, 12 straight missed three-point attempts. So, hey, he had to just throw up a sigh of relief, because it's like, damn, he finally gets to shake that shit off after those struggles. Now, the Thunder would bring it all back by the end of the first quarter, but the Pacers still had the momentum, despite Shai Gilgeous-Alexander getting a two-pointer to close off the first quarter. I mean, by this point, even when that defense wasn't being implemented, he struggled. He wasn't efficient from the field. Just overall, a very slow start for him offensively, when we're talking about a player who's not only averaged 30 plus points per game in the regular season, but also in the series. He's usually much more of a force than that. Yet still, it wasn't all too bad, as this was a 3-point ball game. They were right in it. Jalen Williams as well. Also, you know, again, in that early portion, you could feel that 40-point game he had was kind of bleeding into this one a little bit, but that cooled down as well. Still, it wasn't time to hit the panic button just yet. They were still right in the mix. But the second quarter is where stuff got incredibly insane for them, because the turnovers, these weren't just bad passes, by the way. A good number of these turnovers for the Thunder ended up being offensive fouls as well, whether it be illegal screens, offensive 3-second violations, and things like that. Any type of turnover you could think of, they committed. And it continued to just hurt them, as the distance between both teams in terms of that particular aspect continued to grow, because eventually the Pacers would get to that point, but most of those early ones were just a few offensive fouls on their end. They weren't necessarily as bad. But one name in particular, even with Tyrese Halliburton going on to do what he did throughout this quarter, is going to haunt them forever. That name, you may ask, would be none other than TJ McConnell. The smallest player on the court by far. Yet whenever he enters the game, it is a spectacle to see. So much so that every single time, damn near, or at least there was a particular point in this game, he enters off the bench and they start chanting his name. That crowd is behind him, and his play in the second quarter made that even more so, because he would proceed to get 8 points in the second quarter, continuing to drive along the baseline and get players up in for shots, continuing to just get these tough-ass elbow jumpers inside the restricted area over these defenders. And we're not even talking about defenders that are bad by any stretch of the imagination. You have poor Cason Wallace going up against him. A good perimeter and on-ball defender in his own right. And yet still, as soon as TJ McConnell just gets into that zone, there's almost nothing he can do about it. I think Kenrich Williams got on him for one as well. There was nothing he could do about it. Even Alex Caruso tried to guard him, and he still could not contest the jumper good enough. He made it. Isaiah Hartenstein almost got one made on him too, if not for his height. Like, it barely rimmed out. Shit is insane. Like, the kind of balls that it takes to consistently do this against any defender, no matter what. And that shit went in. This is despite him missing the free throws he got earlier in the quarter as well. So that was pretty good. The Pacers, I noted that their defensive discipline in the early stretch of the second quarter was fading a little bit. They would recover pretty fucking quickly, as Tyrese Halliburton would continue to get himself involved with, I think, 9 second quarter points. Yeah, 9 second quarter points for him here. Just tray ball after tray ball after tray ball. We're talking about getting into that step back jumper. We're talking about one later on where he gets the matchup on Alex Caruso, and he just takes him on a fucking roller coaster. Just leaves him dazed and confused on the right side of the top of the key, I should say. And he just steps back, lights up a three-pointer from the fucking logo, and hits that shit. That crowd was ballistic. And yet, still, even over the course of what would be a 24-6 run, and I guess an overall 30-9 run by the end of the second quarter for this Pacers team, it didn't truly leave them devoid of getting fucked over on some crazy shit by these damn referees. Let me tell you something, bro. Because, yes, they would continue to keep it going, as you would have Tyrese Halliburton in that same stretch be able to get a steal and then also get Nesmith into making multiple three-pointers over the stretch, which would eventually force a timeout. But as the Thunder are trying to get on the board here, you would have Isaiah Hartenstein try to put up one of his signature floaters. And naturally, when he's trying to do this, he's going to be contested by Miles Turner, obviously, because he's the direct matchup on him. And yet, what looks like a routine closeout is penalized and called a foul in real time, as they continue to replay it. Because in the moment, I'm watching this live, and I'm just confused about where exactly the foul was. They replay it, they slow that shit down. And all Miles Turner ends up doing is giving Isaiah Hartenstein the lightest imaginable touch with his forearm to his midsection. The lightest touch. You know how fucking big Isaiah Hartenstein is. I can guarantee you that with his size, he didn't feel that shit at all. And they had the nerve to call that a foul. But they were forced, the Pacers, to challenge this. And it's just so fucking stupid. Because a lot of the calls in this overall series have been pretty fucking bogus. And it's gotten the attention of most people that have watched it. But this is just the icing on the fucking cake. Because how? How? He's doing everything Miles Turner that he needs to be doing. And yet, just because of the lightest fucking contact, it's called a foul. You don't look over to the replay booth yourself. You have to force the opposing team to take a timeout and challenge this. Waste that on that bullshit? Now, it did get overturned. But it's just like, where is the consistency at? Because there would be a sequence later on where, matter of fact, not even later on, earlier on, where Lucian Dort misses a three-pointer, and the closeout that Miles Turner has on that particular play was pretty bang bang. Now, in real time, it didn't look to be any sort of shooting foul, but I would have understood if in the moment you called a foul on that. And then I remember myself saying that, hey, like, you could have looked at that and said that that could have been a foul. Then a few minutes later, you call that shit with Miles Turner doing this a foul. Now, if he, like, extended his arm out forcefully and, like, just completely made Isaiah Hartenstein topple over, that's probably a foul. But he didn't affect his ability to shoot at all. He didn't. He still got the floater up. He just flat out missed it. Like, what do you want Miles Turner to do at that point? And so, yeah, you have moments, I guess, later on in this game as well, where they're guarding guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and they just don't even bother putting their hands up. But at the same time, if you're going to have these referees out here just calling this bogus shit, in some cases, it's not even worth it anymore. It's just not. Because, I just, like, how? Now, I couldn't necessarily go that ballistic being under the weather like this in that moment. But, boy, if I wasn't dealing with this, I would have went fucking crazy on them niggas. Because it's like, how the fuck do you do that shit, bro? But, hey, as fate would have it, they would have no choice but to get right back on the whistle, because Aaron Nesmith would draw what was legitimately a foul and one on Jalen Williams, as he literally hit his damn forearm trying to get in the push floater from the elbow. Like, that's just instant fucking karma. You gotta respect it. And then, yeah, Tyrese Halliburton would continue to just put the dagger in their hearts in more ways than one. Not only would he get this three, but then you would have, oh my gosh, bro. So you would have Alex Caruso, ironically enough, over this stretch of time, managed to get a block on Miles Turner. He hawked his ass down, I'm not gonna lie to you. Now, Holmgren had the help. I don't know if Miles Turner would have made the shot, because granted, even with the team performing the way they did, at least offensively, Miles Turner still did not put together a great performance. But defensively, he was doing his thing. You would have Tyrese Halliburton kind of switch around his hands here on a pretty good floater on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Just going up with his right, putting it up with the left. And we're talking about a great two-way player in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So that's no easy feat. Then you would have another string of turnovers from the Thunder. And then as Tyrese Halliburton would hawk this one down, he would backpedal and backpedal and backpedal into a nasty no-look pass to a driving, sprinting Pascal Siakam. And let's just say that under the rim, awaiting his presence, would be none other than Jalen Williams, and I guess Lucian Dort off a little bit to the fucking side. They both go up, and as they say, what goes up must come down. Pascal Siakam threw that shit down on his fucking head. He posterized him to the point where this man, Jalen Williams, almost fell to the ground, bruh. But he had to stand up and take that shit like the 23-year-old man he is. Shit was crazy, bro. Like, I kid you not. As I continue to say, and I'll say it again here, bro, that particular dunk right there that Siakam had on Williams and I guess Dortch, because he tried to run away from it, but I'm not gonna I'm not gonna let him avoid that punishment. You caught wind of that too. You were certainly on the receiving end of that. He took the fucking soul out of him, bro. There's just no other way to say it, bro. He legitimately took the life out of him. And granted, with whatever it is that they keep on trying to do with this damn shit that I guess Pascal Siakam did earlier on in the pregame, I'm sure the conspiracy theorists out there in this space had a day with that one. I'll tell you that right now. Because, boy, I mean, hey, bro. Like, everybody just wants to blow everything out of proportion, I guess. He would then proceed, Pascal Siakam, to end off the half with a buzzer beater in the post, fading away on Alex Caruso. So, there you go. Again, to add even more fuel to the fire, if that's what people really want to believe. But nevertheless, no matter what you truly think about everything going on, the Pacers were up 64-42, holding the Thunder to that low production on offense and that high rate of turnovers, that very abysmal shooting mark from the three-point line. It was tremendous for them. It marked their largest lead of the series by far. And I think it, honestly, if we want to get real, for either team, that might have been the largest lead of the series. You know, you could take that any number of ways you would want to, right? To say that that is the largest lead of the series in any game, and is game 6. When you are a Thunder team trying to close the Pacers out, it's not a great spot to be in if you're them, but they have been in this position before in the postseason. It's not necessarily impossible to come back from this, as we've seen over the past few years. It is, after all, a game of runs. But the Thunder had to ensure that they could start making some jump shots and that they could start turning the Pacers over themselves. Granted, they did turn them over, but it didn't lead to much of anything. And when it came to shooting, again, they were going to have to take those risks sometimes, and that meant forcing up jump shots. I was very confused as to why, in some cases, they just settled for them. Like, there was a particular one with Aaron Wiggins where he made one in, like, the first quarter, but you're just settling for it. And I don't understand that mentality. You want to try to work your way up to that. You don't necessarily have that luxury now being down by 22 points, with the potential for it to get even worse. You're going to have to start jacking up threes, and they haven't been efficient at just general three-point shooting anyways, so it was going to be very difficult for them to tread those waters gracefully. Even without the jump shooting, though, the third quarter couldn't have necessarily started off much better for either team, because they quite literally went for damn near the first 4 minutes collectively without scoring. Neither team, for 3 minutes and 53 seconds to open up the second half, so much as got a point on the board. Not to say they weren't trying. I mean, the Pacers especially were getting very good looks that just weren't going in, and the Thunder were trying to do the same thing. Yet still, they would turn the ball over on occasion, and they would just get looks that, while they were fine, they weren't great enough for them to start cashing them in. They were going to need that run. especially if you had both offensives struggling collectively. That would have been your chance to strike. But things would break as Tyrese Halliburton would get what would be his only points of the second half by faking the jump shot and then throwing a no-look pass over to the corner, distracting Chet Holmgren as he's guarding him, and just cutting right into the paint for an easy layup off the glass. They would call a timeout right after that as the lead jumped up to 24. And then you would have Miles Turner get on the board with a dunk for his only field goal of the game. Ben Shepherd would also get them a contribution here. And then Isaiah Hartenstein would get into the mix with a few straight points of his own. The Thunder would actually go on an 11-2 run here during this time, with another questionable ass foul taking place eventually, because they're trying to inbound brawl. Tony Bradley's in the game now. They get it over to him, and as he's trying to get the ball, I shit you not, Isaiah Hartenstein is literally grabbing on his jersey, and then as he gets the ball, he pushes him out of bounds. And then they say that Bradley's out of bounds. I'm like, how the fuck is he out of bounds? And you see his momentum being altered by Isaiah Hartenstein literally pushing the shit out of him. I don't know how that works. I truly don't. But they let it rock. Then you have Isaiah Hartenstein, I guess, wanting to confront Tony Bradley. And then Tony Bradley just throws a very light push to just get him off of him. Hartenstein flops to the fucking ground. Keep in mind, this is an individual in Isaiah Hartenstein that is, if I'm not mistaken, 6'11", right? 6'11", and 7 foot. 1 inch off. 7 foot, 255 pounds. Flailing to the ground like he just got the meanest punch imaginable from a player in Tony Bradley, who hasn't really gotten a lot of burn in this series. He did get on the board at this point, but he's a little lighter and a little smaller than Isaiah Hartenstein. He didn't exert enough force, okay, to make you flop to the ground like that. Why the fuck are you on the ground? And yeah, that would lead to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander getting a free throw because he's their technical free throw shooter. But again, of course, in the internet space, you're gonna have people run with that shit because there's just like how it makes no sense. Yeah, the Thunder, we get it down to 18 points though, as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will get another and one in his case. You were thinking that if the Thunder could continue closing out the quarter right, maybe trim the lead down to around 14, that they could at least give themselves a chance going into the fourth quarter. That would not happen, because right afterwards you would have Andrew Nembhard, despite getting foul baited by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he would respond with a three-pointer of his own. And he would continue to be aggressive as well, getting himself a couple free throws. Obi Toppin would get in the mix, and then Pascal Siakam and Obi Toppin would trade back-to-back three-pointers to get the lead up to 27. In between there was a three-pointer from Lucic Dort. Now, mind you, that might have been because they finished the game, the Thunder, with 8. They didn't have a good amount of three-pointers at that time. That might have been their, I would say that was like their third or fourth. It wasn't a great night for their three-point shooting. But even with that being said, the Pacers didn't fucking care, because what does Ben Shepherd proceed to do? Mind you, Ben Shepherd, again, casual NBA fan, isn't necessarily keen on who exactly this man is. But he proceeds to just every time, in every series in this postseason, he's just gotten one of the craziest three-point shots off at the craziest times in these games, in these respective series. That wouldn't change here. He would literally get the ball off of an offensive rebound from Pascal Siakam, and then Andrew Nembhard just quickly taps it over to him. He gets the shot up, and he hits a fucking third quarter buzzer beater to push the lead up to 30 by the end of the third quarter. The goal for the Thunder would have likely been to get it down to 15. So we're talking about them getting it down to 18 and then just having the lead increase by 12 more points by the end of the third quarter. Again, I am very, very motivated to place emphasis on this. The Thunder were trying. They were putting forth as best of an effort as they possibly could. And as I alluded to, watching the game, I am sure that there were probably some Thunder fans out there claiming, saying that, oh, the Thunder weren't trying to win this game. They weren't trying hard at all. They obviously want to go back to win it in Oklahoma City. They didn't give a shit about this game. They gave multiple fucks about this game. They were certainly going hard out there. The execution wasn't all there, but they were certainly putting in 110% effort out there. If you truly believe that they were not trying to get the job done in this one, you're probably very delusional. And honestly, those same emboldened fans saying all this, I'd like to see you try to go out there just in any, I guess, championship game, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be predicated in like a series of like a best of 7, best of 5, whatever. Any championship game, you go out there and you try to win one, and you'll see just how difficult it is. It's no easy task to close any team out, especially when you're dealing with a team in the Pacers that have quite literally had comeback after comeback after comeback in this postseason alone. But even then, when you look at this game right here, it's not necessarily a good sign, and it could make this potential Game 7 intriguing. But I'll get into that in just a second. Because, let's be honest, the fourth quarter was full on garbage time. You would have guys like Thomas Bryant come in for them, and by that point, pretty much every Pacers player that had touched the court scored. Johnny Furphy and James Johnson would check into the game later on, and neither of them scored. James Johnson would also somehow get himself ejected just 2 minutes in, because that's the type of timing he's on. Even while being up by all these points, instead of really just taking in the moment and maybe trying to add to it by getting yourself on the board, he proceeded to brick a shot before this incident even took place. You would much rather fight a nigga on the court than score in an NBA game. Like, it's just, it's crazy stuff to witness. But yeah, the Pacers win this game 108-91. It was just full-on domination after that second quarter. And again, the Thunder looked to have it early, but the Pacers, in a game that they needed to have, snatched that momentum completely from their grasp and won convincingly to give them what would be the largest win in this series. Obviously, the Thunder won by 16 in Game 4. So that might not necessarily be saying much, but still, neither team had gotten up to the overall lead that the Pacers possessed in this game, in this entire series. So for it to be happening this late in a potential Game 6 could be a cause for pause. It could be. Now again, the Thunder have every single advantage you could think of for this potential Game 7. I mean, they were in the Denver series at home for Game 7, and we saw what happened to them then. But people seem to forget as well because, you want to constantly invalidate these particular playoff runs from these teams. The Pacers themselves were also in a Game 7 in last year's playoffs. And we saw what they did to the Knicks in that particular game. Even with them losing the war of attrition, they still had to go out there and win the game. And what did they do? They set the NBA record for efficiency in a playoff game when it came to field goal percentage. But again, people don't want to talk about that. They don't. That's all I'm saying. So both teams, the Pacers are a relatively young team themselves, I guess not necessarily on the same plane as the Thunder, who would have been the second youngest team to ever win an NBA championship if they would have closed things out here, and if they can get it done in Game 7. But it's really a wild card. I don't know. I said Pacers in 7, and that has a great chance of happening too, because they're going to be riding high off of this. But the key would be to get off to a hot start. Or at least a start that keeps you in the mix of the game. Because in Game 1, shit got out of hand after just the first few minutes of the ball game. Now granted, you were able to steal it with the game-winning shot from Tyrese Halliburton. And then in Game 2, you didn't stand a chance. In Game 5, you didn't stand a chance. You can't allow the Thunder to just completely take over. Because once the crowd gets into it, and if they continue to just be effective from the field, it could be a wrap for you. Establishing that kind of will early is certainly going to help when things are all said and done. But hey, Game 7, the first one since the 2016 NBA Finals. We obviously know what happened, and they literally want to keep reminding us. It's torture. But we know what happened then. The Cavs went on to beat the Warriors in Oracle at the time. So again, there's a great chance that similar things could happen here. And it's all on what the Pacers do, especially defensively too. And I'll get to the numbers right now, honestly. I'll look at the Thunder first, because when you look at it, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for the average NBA player, okay, a game of this sort is pretty damn good. In this particular context, though, when you are Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a player who's now won the MVP and the Western Conference Finals MVP, to have a game in which you have 21 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists on 7-15 shooting with a career high, or tied for a career high, 8 turnovers, is terrible for what he usually brings to the table. And again, did it help his case that Jalen Williams had 16 points on 6 of 13 shooting? Did it help him that Chet Holmgren had another stinker in this game with 4 points and 6 rebounds on 2 of 9 shooting? No, it didn't. Because those assist to turnover ratios are just terrible all across the board. The team struggled once again to distribute effectively. Like, they had a damn 2 to 3 assist to turnover ratio. And a lot of those assists came in garbage time. The turnovers were just completely through the roof here. And again, the Pacers eventually got themselves up to 10 turnovers, but they weren't necessarily costly like that. It just took away possessions from the Thunder time and time again. Because for a while, honestly, and even with the way they finished out the game, they shot 41.9% from the field. Better than the Pacers. But they took 18 less shots from the field. And they gave up 21 more points on three-pointers. And that is where the battle was lost. Isaiah Hartenstein had 10 points, one of the better games he's had, but still to no avail. Isaiah Joe also had 11 points off the bench on 3 of 4 with 2 threes. Is there a chance that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander might have a game specifically like this? I don't know. And the same with Jalen Williams. I mean, his negative 40 box plus minus is the worst in a NBA Finals game in NBA history. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was minus 17 on the court. I don't necessarily think that they'll have those kinds of performances again, given the stakes. But given that this, by and large, worked with the strategy of just keeping an eye on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and preventing him from getting to the paint. The Thunder did the same damn thing. They did the same thing to Anthony Edwards just the last series. Now, not necessarily with the same kind of attention. This was more of an individual effort, as you had a rotating cast of guys guarding him. The Pacers could do the same thing, but still, like, while somebody's engaged with him, you have Miles Turner avoiding a defensive 3-second violation, but just watching the paint, waiting to slide his feet the moment that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander enters that area of the court. It worked. So they may go right back to it. The Thunder as well, when you look at what Mark Daigneault could do, they also got some things to go their way. I mean, that particular stretch preventing the Pacers from scoring is something to hang your hat on. And a lot of the strategies that you implemented there could be utilized for your team as well, if you are looking at it from OKC's perspective. But to move on to the winning side, the Pacers. It could still be argued that Tyrese Halliburton might have had a little more to show, as some of these other sports shows will stay. Still, 14 points, 5 assists, and 2 steals through 3 quarters of play on 5 of 12 shooting with 3 threes, even if it's just a difference of 10 points. The impact he possessed on this particular court on this night was way, way more important and had way more influence compared to the game he had in Game 5. And that's all that you were asking for at this point. When you just have him out there as a funnel to run your offense through, it literally makes the Pacers just a well-oiled machine. And yes, again, people will cite that TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin had a greater impact on this game. And in cases, yes, they did. I mean, the fact that TJ McConnell is doing what he's doing all around is certainly working to their benefit right now. So much so that he is now the first player in NBA history to have at least 60 points, 25 rebounds, and 10 assists off of the bench through 6 games in NBA Finals history. The very first to do so. Obi Toppin as well was also the only player for the Pacers to reach 20 points, just straight up. And he did that on 6 of 12 shooting with 4 threes of his own. I'm not denying that they played well. And Andrew Nembhard also had 17 points and 4 assists and 3 steals without a single rebound on 5 of 7 shooting with 3 threes. Hyper efficient. Pascal Siakam had 16 points and 13 rebounds and 3 assists on 6 of 14 shooting. All of them played a little bit better. And again, when you look at odds, the odds have Siakam as, well, they give Siakam, rather, a higher likelihood to win Finals MVP in this particular case than Halliburton. Those odds could be shortening right now depending on what happens. You know, that kind of thing, I'm sure, is constantly changing around. So I wouldn't say that's set in stone. Still, even with all that being said, when Halliburton is healthy, or at least not even healthy in this case, you're still dealing with this calf strain. You're not 100%, but you're mostly ready to go. You're motivated to try and protect home court, as Halliburton cited repeatedly. And he made it happen. To just have him out there is a great, well, not only a great luxury, but it is literally the difference in between winning these matches and losing. Now, no, Halliburton didn't necessarily get 20 points in this one, and his record in the postseason, this particular postseason, in games in which he scores less than 20 points, is now even. There's something to it, though, not having to even play the fourth quarter, because the team is just doing that well collectively, and it helps to conserve him. You know, if you can get the nerves together, if you can get yourself into a rhythm on the road, Halliburton could be in for something special in this next game. Because honestly, why would you have him continue to play in the fourth quarter, as, you know, pretty much everyone else did in some capacity, right? There's no need to continue to exert even more energy out of Tyrese Halliburton when he's already dealing with this injury. You'd much rather let him rest up or start it early, continue to get that healed up, and come into Game 7 in the best condition imaginable. Even if that's not totally 100%, as long as he's closer to it, it only helps you. And again, like I said, man, it's just going to be a sight to see. I can't wait for it. The Pacers as well as a team. Again, it's about team basketball. It's about team basketball. No one player is bigger than the team. And, you know, again, yes, I think Tyrese Halliburton is a superstar. Whether or not you want to believe that, though, you can't deny that as a collective unit, they are formidable and have been for pretty much the past 2 postseasons. They've certainly proven themselves. No matter what happens in Game 7. No matter what happens. And if they win this to get their first ever championship, it'll just add to the allure that they've acquired over this entire postseason. And honestly, when you hear a stat like this, it just makes all the sense in the world. The Pacers are now, after this game, the first team in NBA history to have at least 8 different players reach 200 points in a single postseason of play. Think about that shit. In the more than now 78 year history of this league, no team has ever done that, when yet the idea of a coherent unit has been preached for ages now. Right? Like, that's just, we got to be completely honest about that one. Those kinds of teachings have been inherent to damn near every locker room. But at the same time, people will not always follow it, because you're gonna have those teams who are just filled with players who, whether it's warranted or not, believe that they are the team. And granted, we like that as the general fan base. Let's just be completely honest. You know your players like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and other superstars who just took it upon themselves to be the game changers in ball games. That's totally understandable. But we continue at times, I guess, to just downplay those teams that aren't necessarily predicated on having 1 or 2 particular players make up the difference in a ball game. Sometimes it's about getting all of those players involved in one fell swoop and making sure that no matter what, they are ready to go. So that no matter who you're dealing with at any given point in a game, you're gonna get the best they've got. That's what this Pacers team has consistently done throughout this particular postseason. And again, whether they cap that off and ride high with a victory, or whether they lose, that kind of mindset, along with how they're constructed, is going to ensure that they're not going to go anywhere. And likewise for the Thunder. They are built, both of these teams, in a few of the same ways and in some different ways, are built to last. But if they want to stake their claim as an NBA champion, the Thunder, for the very first time since 1978, and for the Pacers, for the first time ever, it is all going to come down to how they perform in Game 7. But, that'll do it for the game action. As far as other news go, a major piece of news that'll honestly change around the landscape of the Lakers franchise, to be completely honest with you. They sold, the Buss family sold the Lakers franchise to Mark Walter for $10 billion earlier this week. Now, the interesting thing about this Mark Walter person is that apparently he had taken partial ownership of the Dodgers franchise years ago. And I guess people have alluded to the fact that something like this would be in the works. If that was the case, then still, to see the Buss family give up those rights. They owned the Lakers for the last 46 years. It's been a family business ever since then. And man, they made it a spectacle. The Showtime Lakers, the Shaq and Kobe era, the LeBron tenure in Los Angeles, and now having Luka Doncic come along with the potential to do what he can in this situation. They just consistently bring the stars out. Whether it be basketball players, whether it was actors coming to their games. I remember that the retired actor Jack Nicholson, for the longest time, would show up at their games. I think he's just trying to stay out of the spotlight now, so it's been a few years since he's done that. But names like that, just the top of the top, man. Watching them play, because you knew you were going to get quality entertainment from it, no matter what. And with all of that came a lot of profit that the Buss family would be able to pocket over this time. But the way that it was set up, apparently, as multiple sources pointed out, and as I was watching this particular video, apparently, they were making so much that, the representatives of the family were 6 particular people. And with the income coming in from the Lakers franchise in terms of profit margins per year, they had to divide it up and give out like $10 million per year or something like that. There was a lot of infighting because people weren't having it. And eventually, Jeannie Buss is now one of the last names of the Buss family currently in standing in that organization. She'll still be the governor, the face of the, organizational structure when it comes to, the front office and stuff like that. But Mark Walter's going to have most of the decisions in play here, and he'll be trying to get different things in order in that sense. I mean, shit. A change might have been due at some point, given how that was going for the Buss family. Still, though, it's pretty fucking wild to see. Like, hey, bro. You just hope that Walter, in this case, can just build a respectable organization. They're definitely going to try to make their moves and everything. But the most important thing when it comes to starting off in a franchise like this is just making sure that they are respected. The environment is also ideal. Because a lot of people don't seem to understand that in this day and age. And that they're relevant. Because, granted, with the Doncic trade, right, the Lakers still are going to be in that conversation. But you want to ensure that you're constantly bringing in that talent, and that you are also actively competing to the highest level with that talent. Because you don't want to just acquire a boatload of fucking players that are very elite at what they do and then not contend for titles. Just remain in obscurity for the next few years. You don't want that. You just have to make sure that you're contending. But, it's a hefty price, sure. But if he can do everything he needs to do, well, shit. The Lakers are going to be in for something special. As for the Rockets, though, they would sign Ime Udoka to a long-term contract extension worth up to at least $10 million per year, I think they said. The exact details on that have not been released to this point. It does make him one of the higher-paid coaches in the NBA. And again, to keep it simple, because we have covered the Rockets before, especially, when their season ended, we looked at how things were going to potentially be for them in this offseason. And they did already accomplish a re-signing of Steven Adams. So that's huge. Now you lock down the head coach who has really brought you a long way in just the past few years. I mean, just think about where the Rockets were just 5 years ago. You have James Harden forcing his way out, and then you have John Wall coming in, shitting on his fucking teammates because they couldn't play well enough. The Rockets were one of the worst franchises in the league at a point. And then you bring in Ime Udoka. Those struggles are still there for a little bit, but the foundation's being laid. They make just a few moves, and all of a sudden, the Rockets are now a team that is coming off of a 52-30 season. And he has them primed to continue to elevate. Now again, roster construction may have to undergo some more changes because, again, when it comes to a guy like Jalen Green, I don't know if all of Houston is still behind him right now. I don't know if he's going to remain there. And I think that's going to be their biggest hurdle, their biggest ask this offseason. Are they willing to retain him? Or do they feel as though they will only get better as a team if he is not there with them? Very, very important question. And if they can answer that, with it working out to the best of their ability, who knows what could happen with them. No matter what, though, especially with the fact that they were trying to have, the Knicks were trying to reach out to Ime Udoka as well. The Rockets saw that, and they decided right then and there to not let any other team even think about getting in his head for a potential coaching job. Smartly, they lock him up long term. And I have a feeling that, this is a mutual thing. Obviously, both sides in some case have to agree. And though they may not see eye to eye on everything, they can both respect each other's vision. For Tita and Udoka, that is. They both know what direction they want this team heading in. All they need is just a few moves, and they may very well get themselves accelerated on that path. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.